Hello there, and welcome to a new season of the Speech and Language Kids podcast. I am your host, Carrie Clark, and today we're going to talk about the speech sound curriculums inside the SLK curriculum. But let me spend a little bit of time kind of explaining what this season of the podcast is going to be. So usually in the past, I have released weekly episodes, and it's just kind of been on whichever topic of interest we have that week. But this season, so to speak, of the podcast, we're going to release 6 all at once, or as close to it as I can. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on one area of communication for each of these 6 episodes. So inside our curriculum that we have created over at Speech and Language Kids, we have 6 areas. So we have speech, language, voice and fluency, voice and resonance, then fluency. We have social communication, and we have functional communication. So I'm going to release one podcast episode on each of those areas, and we're going to dive into what are the curriculums that we have for that area, how are they broken down, how do you decide which children or teens are appropriate for which curriculums, and then what's included. So my goal with this is twofold. If you already have access to our Speech and Language Kids curriculums, this is going to give you additional resources on helping you use them effectively. If you are not yet a subscriber to the SLK curriculum, then this is going to give you some more information about what's included to help you decide if it's right for you. So if you have been around with us for a while, if you've been following me for a while, the curriculum it's kind of the culmination of everything I've been working on for the last 13 years, I think. And so this is kind of the evolution of what used to be called the Speech and Language Kids Hub, or the SLP solution before that, or the speech therapy solution before that. We like to change our name every once in a while. But it really does reflect what phase I'm in as a business owner and what phase of helping you guys we're in. And so we really wanted to do this additional renaming because we really have changed a lot since our membership site days. So it used to be that I had the membership site, you would come in, ask questions, I'd answer them with a video. That's all we had. This new iteration of the program is so much better, so much more evolved, because it is not just advice, it is not just a support desk. It is a full curriculum. And so we have broken down all of these areas. We've mapped out the skill progressions of how to teach children step by step in a way that gets them from wherever they are right now to real life communication improvements. So whatever it is that they're struggling with, we're going to walk you through exactly how to get them through that challenge and communicating in their best possible way. And so today, we're going to be focusing on the speech sound curriculums, okay? But the rest of the episodes, you can kind of go through those and pick the ones that are relevant to you. I'm going to cover those other areas. So what I want to emphasize right here is that since we've created these curriculums, since we've taken all of this information, all of these resources, all of our no prep therapy kits, and put it into this framework, what that does is it makes it accessible to everyone. So this is great for established speech-language pathologists. It's great for brand new speech-language pathologists, such as our CFYs. It is great for speech-language pathology assistants who are implementing this therapy. It's also great for parents and caregivers and teachers and educators. And so what this does is it gives us all the same tools. It gives us all a common language that we can speak so that everyone on a child's team or a teenager's team is working from the same playbook, and we're able to help them make faster progress. So that's what it's all about. I'm super excited about this. I hope you are too. So I'm going to go ahead and start talking about speech sounds, but in the meantime, if you are trying to access this, you can go to our website at speechandlanguagekids.com. You will see up at the top, there's Get the Curriculum, and there's also Sign In. So that's your quickest route. If you already have an account, you can go to hub.speechandlanguagekids.com. It's still that same URL, so it'll still log you in, but now we are reframing this as the curriculum instead of just a hub of resources. Okay, so let's jump in. All right, so if you are new to the world of speech therapy, there's the big difference between speech and language. And we kind of smush it all together when we're talking about our field. But speech really focuses on the specific sounds that a child or a teen is saying and whether or not they can produce them. So we're talking about how clear is their speech. Language, on the other hand, has to do with all of the other things like vocabulary and syntax and grammar and asking and answering questions and comprehending things, written language. All of that goes into language. So today we're just talking about their actual production of speech sounds and how clearly they can speak. So what we have is we have 4 curriculums in this area of speech sounds. And they're all intended to help improve clarity of speech, but from different perspectives, because different children and teenagers will have different reasons why their speech is not clear. And so if we just give them all the same resources, they're not going to all respond the same. What we want to do is really focus in on why they're hard to understand and then provide them the exact tools that they need to make progress in that area. Okay? So, who is this for? It's for children and teens who are difficult to understand. It's for those who have sound distortions. So maybe their R doesn't quite sound like a crisp, clear R, or maybe their S sounds a little slushy. So, they're close, but it's kind of distorted. It's also for children who are maybe mumbling or they sound like they're slurring their speech. And then it's also for those who have motor speech conditions such as childhood apraxia of speech or dysarthria. So any of those groups, they are all perfect for our speech sound curriculums. Now, on the other side, in terms of which adults is this meant for? This is meant for speech language pathologists, speech language therapists, speech language professionals, whatever you're called in your country or your area. Also our speech language therapy assistants or SLPAs, our parents and caregivers, and our teachers and educators. So once you get inside the curriculum, you will see that we have training modules for each of those different groups. So whether you're a new SLP, an established SLP, an SLPA, a caregiver, or an educator, you will find a training video just for you that will help you figure out how to use this. Okay? All right, so let's talk about these 4 curriculums then. The 4 curriculums that we have are articulation, phonology, motor speech, and mumbling. So I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then we'll dive into what's included in each of those. So articulation is where we teach one sound at a time. We say, you have an R problem, we teach you R. You have an S problem, we teach you S. Sometimes we might be working on more than one sound, but we're working on them by themselves. And so that is the articulation approach. The phonology approach is when we teach whole classes of sounds. So for example, there is a class of sounds called fricatives, and these are the sounds that are long, like s, f, sh. They're sounds you can hold out. Those fricatives come as a class, and when children are learning to speak, they will come up with patterns that simplify words so that they can say them more easily. So when they're young, they might not say the fricatives. They might replace those fricatives with shorter sounds. So S becomes T, F becomes P. They're just replacing a harder sound with an easier sound, but they're doing it as a whole class. As children get older, we expect those patterns to go away and for them to develop those harder sounds. But sometimes they get kind of stuck, and that's where phonology therapy can come in, because we can work on that pattern called a phonological process. We can work on that as a whole class, and that allows us to make faster progress than if we had to teach the F and then the S and then the SH and teach them all separately. Okay? So articulation, one sound at a time. Phonology, a whole class of sounds. Now, there's a lot of these different patterns, and we'll go over those in a little bit, but that's kind of the overview. Now, the next one is our motor speech curriculum. So this one is for children who are physically struggling to get their mouth to say the sounds and to coordinate the speech. So these children maybe have childhood apraxia of speech or dysarthria. Maybe they have other motor problems too, and they need help figuring out how to sequence sounds together to produce longer words. So we start with shorter words and we build our way up. So instead of targeting specific sounds, we are starting with word structures. Shorter words first, building up. Okay? And then the fourth curriculum we have is a mumbling curriculum. So these are my friends who don't really fall into any of the other three categories because they do know how to produce the sounds. They are capable of doing it. They don't have any motor problems. But for whatever reason, when it comes to conversational speech, they're kind of just mumbling. They're maybe slurring all their words together. They're speaking so quietly you can't understand them. They're not articulating the sounds clearly enough for us to understand. And so for those friends, we have a different approach. Okay, so those are the four different curriculums. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to go through each of those curriculums. I'm going to walk you through what's included, and then I'm going to tell you about the levels. So I want you to think of these curriculums as kind of like a giant choose your own adventure book where, you read through it. It says, okay, is it like this or this? And then you turn to that page. And then it says, okay, now is it like this or this? And you turn to that page. And so our first decision is, which of these four paths do you want to go down? Now, if you are still not sure after listening to this podcast, we do have a screening checklist inside the curriculum that gives checkboxes that you can go through and check. You can have the parents check this, you can check this, you can have the teachers check this, and then that gives us more information to make the best choice possible. And sometimes we are just guessing, okay? Sometimes we're not totally sure which approach is going to be best. And so we try one and we take really good data. And if our data shows it's not working, then we switch to a different one. And that's okay. It's all right to do some trial and error here. But the first decision point is which of the four. And then the next decision point is going to be which level. Okay, so a 3-year-old working on articulation is going to look very different from a 13-year-old working on articulation. And so what we've done is we've taken each curriculum and we've divided it into 3 levels. And for simplicity, I have called these beginner, intermediate, and advanced. You will see that there are ages associated with those levels, but it's specific to each curriculum. So the beginner level of articulation is a different age than the beginner level of the mumbling curriculum, okay? So the ages are specific to the skills we're working on, but we break them down into those 3 levels to help you figure out a better starting point. Okay, so let's jump into the articulation curriculum. Remember, this is the one where we work on sounds, one sound at a time. So this program would be great for children who are saying specific sounds incorrectly. Okay, so it's not that they're leaving all of their final consonants off of their words, it's that they specifically struggle with a sound. They may have some sounds that are distorted or sound different than they should, again, like the R's and the S's. Or it could be that they are not saying sounds correctly that are expected for their age. And we do have resources over at Speech and Language Kids about speech sounds by age. So if you're looking for that, that's over there. But specifically, they're not hitting those speech sound milestones. Okay? So our 3 levels for this one then. So we have our beginner level is our early developing sounds. And these sounds tend to come in between 2 and 3 years. Now, all of our levels, you'll see if you're looking at these pages that I say their age range and beyond. Because just because children typically acquire these skills by 3 years doesn't mean that everyone will, and it doesn't mean you can't work on them later. I give you those ranges to have a bottom end, right? So if you're working with a 1-year-old, let's say, and they're not able to say their P sound, we're not worried about a 1-year-old saying a P sound yet, because those are 2 to 3-year-old sounds, okay? So this is just to give you a frame of reference for when those skills typically emerge. So our beginner level is our early developing sounds between 2 and 3 years, and those sounds are B, N, M, P, H, W, and D. Now, before you guys start commenting, when I am making a podcast, I have to enunciate these more clearly so that they are heard. So if you are going to comment in that I added an to a sound, I know, I'm trying to make it heard. Okay. Also, our vowels go into this beginner level. So if we're working on an articulation, on the articulation curriculum, and we are working with a child who's missing one of those sounds, we're going to start at that beginner level. Now, each of these levels is going to have specific skills and specific workbooks that you can grab to practice to work on that. We have sample goals for the levels. And so I'm not going to dive into every single kit and every single workbook and what is included in each one because we would be here all day. But I'm going to tell you what skills, like I just listed those sounds, just so you have an idea of what's included, but then know that all of the therapy materials and the workbooks are inside the curriculum. Okay, so that's beginner level. And then we have our intermediate level. So for our intermediate level, we are looking at our mid-developing sounds. These are sounds that typically emerge between 3 and 4 years of age. And so we have these sounds as g, k, f, t, ng, the ng, like at the end of ring, and the y sound. So those are in our mid-developing sounds. And then our advanced level for articulation is our later developing sounds and our sound clusters. These emerge between 4 and 7 years and sometimes even later. So those are basically all the rest of them. I will let you go over there and look and see that on your own. But also our consonant clusters, so putting 2 consonants together. Those occur in that advanced level. So that one's pretty simple. We're just breaking it down by when those sounds should emerge. Similarly is the phonology curriculum. So our phonology curriculum, again, is we're looking at sound patterns. So some signs that they might be good for the phonology curriculum would be if they're leaving off sounds in certain positions. So maybe they're always dropping off beginning consonants or ending consonants. Maybe they're dropping out sounds in the middle of the word. They might have trouble with a whole class of sounds, like long sounds, the fricatives that we talked about before, or maybe ones that are made in a particular place in the mouth. So maybe it's our K's and G's, those back sounds. Maybe they're producing them as T and D, or vice versa, okay? Also, a sign that a child might benefit from this phonology approach would be if they can say certain sounds in some positions or words, but not others. So we're saying, wow, well, we're seeing that they can say the K and G sounds when they happen at the beginning of words, but not at the end. That can clue us in that this is more of a phonological problem. Okay, so again, for our levels, these ones are also processes in terms of when they typically emerge in children. So our beginner level is our early phonological processes. These are occurring from the ages 3 to 4 years is about when we start to see these. And so these are about dropping off whole sounds or word parts. So initial consonant deletion, final consonant deletion, and unstressed syllable deletion all happen in that early phonological processes level. Okay? Then we have our intermediate level, which is our mid-developing phonological processes. We see this right between 4 and 5 years. And this is our velar fronting, meaning we're saying tat instead of cat. Our backing, the opposite, saying gog instead of dog. Stopping of fricatives and cluster reduction. And then our advanced level is between 4 and 7 years. And these are ones like gliding, pre-vocalic voicing, and post-vocalic devoicing. Now, if you're not sure what all those terms are, not a big deal. Like I said, there are training videos inside that are going to help you through all of that. But that just gives you an idea of how we are grouping these together into those levels. Okay, 2 more curriculums to go through for our speech sounds. The next one is motor speech. So these are children who are struggling with inconsistent speech sound errors. So it doesn't seem to be that they're always struggling with K and G or they're always dropping off certain sounds. It is that every time they say a word, it sounds a little different. Sometimes they can say a word clearly, sometimes they can't at all. They may have trouble with sounds in longer words. So maybe they have a few short words they can say, but when it gets to longer words, they cannot get those out. They may seem to physically struggle to get the sounds out. Like it looks like they are really struggling to get their mouth to do what they want it to do. Their voice may sound, or their speech may sound choppy or robotic. And then sometimes we also see drooling and excessive saliva buildup with these friends as well because of that lack of coordination of all the parts inside their mouth. So for our levels for this one, we have our beginner level is where we're going to work on very, very short words. So these are words that will start off with just 2 sounds together, a consonant and a vowel, either consonant vowel or vowel consonant. So we call those CV or VC words. And then once they can do that, then we can build up to CVC words so that they have a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant. So we typically see children start to be able to produce those word structures between 1 to 3 years. And then beyond that, once we get some of those basic words, then we can work on the intermediate level, which is expanding word structures and utterance length. And this is typically 1.5 to 4 years is kind of the range where we start to work on these. And so this is a combination of a couple things. First, we are helping them produce longer words. So maybe CV or CCVC. So we're giving them a vocabulary of longer words, helping them build up their word length. But we're also starting to put 2 words together from those shorter words that they know. Because not only do these children struggle to coordinate putting the sounds together to say words, they also struggle coordinating putting words together to make sentences. So we can support them with this curriculum by helping them do both. And then once we get to the advanced level, this is our 3 to 7 years and beyond. This is when we are just continuing to work on their speech coordination and making their speech sound fluid and natural. So we're working on improving their oral proprioception and coordination, being aware of where their articulators are and being able to move them to produce the sounds they want to move. We're working on producing multisyllabic words, and we can even start working on prosody at this point, which is pitch, volume, and rate. So all of that goes into the motor speech curriculum. All right, one more to go on this one, and then we'll wrap up speech sounds. So our last curriculum then is the mumbling speech curriculum. And so this is for children who are mumbling or slurring their speech. Maybe they're speaking too quickly, maybe they're speaking too quietly, maybe they can say sounds correctly in single words, but their intelligibility reduces once they get to conversational speech. And I will say too, sometimes we get to this level once we've been doing speech sound therapy for a while and they now can remember how to say those sounds, but they don't remember to use them throughout the day. So we can switch to this curriculum to kind of push them through that last piece, okay? So beginner level for mumbling curriculum, we're gonna start with over-articulation in structured tasks. And so over-articulation is just very clearly saying each sound of our sentence. Okay, so that is over-articulation. And we start with this by having them practice that with just single words. Okay, so here's a butterfly. We're gonna say butterfly with really clear articulation on every sound. Now, is that how we talk in conversation all the time? Absolutely not. I don't talk like that. You don't talk like that. We're not expecting our children to talk like that. But what we do need to do is teach them how to take it to the extreme so that they can find the middle, because that's generally where the problem is. So we start with over-articulating single words, then we over-articulate in phrases and sentences. And then we're going to move on to our intermediate level, which is speaking clearly in structured conversation. So at this point, we're going to have a structured conversation, just meaning it's not a free-for-all. We're not just walking down the hall talking. I'm saying, okay, we're going to have a conversation about this, and we're going to practice this skill. And so we're going to practice speaking in a conversation with over-articulation, and then we're going to have them over-articulate when prompted. So we're going to say, oh, I'm having trouble understanding you. Can you over-articulate? And so what we're doing here is we're establishing their ability to correct when they get to the point where people can't understand them. Oh, you're starting to mumble and slur again? Okay, intentionally go into your over-articulation so people can understand you. And chances are these kids are then going to land somewhere in the middle where they're not over-articulating everything, but they're able to get more articulations in there than they were when they were mumbling, okay? So then our advanced level is being able to self-correct. We don't expect this until 7 to 10 years because children younger than that usually don't have enough self-awareness and self-correction skills to be able to work on that. Some will, but not a lot. And so by the time we get to the 7 to 10 year range, or even beyond our teenagers, that's when we start to work on helping them identify when someone doesn't understand them, and then actively using that strategy of over-articulation to clear the communication breakdown, to make themselves understood. Okay? So that's that's it. Those are our 4 speech sound curriculums. So again, that was articulation, phonology, motor speech, and mumbling. Like I said, we have all the therapy materials for that inside the hub, our hub.speechandlanguagekids.com. Inside the curriculum, we've got all of the materials. We have training videos. We have videos on each and every speech sound and how to elicit those speech sounds if you're struggling with that. We have so much. And so you can find that at speechandlanguagekids.com. You'll find a couple different ways to look at this. In our top menu, you can find the page that says Get the Curriculum. That's how you sign up, or sign in if you're already a member. You'll also see a drop down for our curriculums, and you can go specifically to the speech sound curriculum, and you'll be able to see what we have in terms of the speech sound, and all the information I just went over is on that page. So you can check that out as well. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. You can email me at Carrie, Carrie, at speechandlanguagekids.com. I'd be happy to answer. There's also a free 7-day trial, so hop in and check it out. Your subscription to the curriculum includes all the areas, not just speech sounds. You get them all. You also get our core language program, which is a 16-week oral language intervention, which is phenomenal. So you get that as well included in that subscription price. It's just $50 a month or $500 a year. So definitely go check those out. Let us know what questions you have. I hope you enjoy the speech sound curriculums, and our next episode will be on the language curriculum. So stay tuned for that. Bye for now.